Hi everybody and welcome to the Crowdfunder weekly webinar. We're going to start off this week by letting you know that you can join us using #CFLive on Twitter. You can also ask us questions if you look to the bottom of the page and there's a little chat option. So get involved and come and talk to us. Today we're going to tell you about 3 really cool things that have happened in Crowdfunder world this week, starting off with the fact that we raised £1 million for Crowdfunder. So we crowdfunded ourselves by giving away some equity in our business, and we hit our target this week. I'm going to try and show you the screen so that you can go and check it out yourself. There you go. Check out Crowdfunder on Crowdcube. So there we go. And then next up, oh, there you go, you've got it. Next up on hot news this week, we are launching what we call, we've got some company this week. That's Phil, and that's our MD, and that's his little boy, Albie. That's quite funny, Phil's waving. So also coming up this week, we are launching Better Bristol with the Bristol Green Capital Partnership. And this is a really exciting campaign where we're looking to raise over £1 million for projects across the city of Bristol. So let's have a look. You can see the Better Bristol campaign there. And if you want to find out a little bit more, check out crowdfunder.co.uk/better-bristol. So go and check out that campaign. It's pretty cool. So, Si, what news have you got for us this week?
We are also launching a campaign with Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall's War on Waste. I don't know if you would have seen this on BBC. It aired a couple of weeks ago. If you haven't, it's on iPlayer. I'd highly recommend going and watching both episodes of Hugh's new TV show. It's basically around tackling waste issues in the UK. And we've found a ton of projects, people that are making a real difference on the ground every day. And we're supporting those projects in crowdfunding. They're raising awareness, they're raising support, and they're raising funding to help them continue tackling some of the astronomical waste issues that are going on today in the UK. So if you know anybody who who is in the waste industry, is tackling food waste, recycling, upcycling, maybe they're doing something with water perhaps, tell them to head over to Crowdfunder. The URL is crowdfunder.co.uk/campaign/Hugh's War on Waste with hyphens all in between. Or if you head down to the footer, you can find the campaigns on the Crowdfunder site. That's really, really quite cool, quite exciting, making a real difference and big social impacts and environmental impacts happening right now in the UK, and we're supporting them. And
we are totally waging that war on waste. Do you
Absolutely.
like it? It's a bit silly, but war on waste, like that. Right, Si, what's next?
So we should probably talk a little bit about crowdfunding. Today, the webinar is going to be a quick overview on what crowdfunding is and some of the steps to take to ensure that you run a successful crowdfunding project. So Jess, I think we've got some slides.
Yeah, let's share these slides with you guys. Okay. I'm hoping you guys can see that. So I'm sure somebody will let me know on Skype if that's the case that you can't. Right, okay, so I'm hoping you can see that. So what we're about at Crowdfunder is we are all about turning great ideas into a reality. So this is crowdfunding, and we at Crowdfunder, we've had some really massive successes. We've raised over £10 million for projects across the UK. We've actually done over 30,000 projects now, and we've got a really big community of crowdfunders. That's people that back up projects themselves, and that's people that run projects themselves. So that's our community. And we've got hundreds of projects being added each day. So can you tell us a little bit about the different types of crowdfunding?
Yeah, sure. So there's 4 main types of crowdfunding. The one we're going to talk to you most about today is rewards-based crowdfunding. That's what Crowdfunder is known best for. That's what we specialize in. However, it's worth touching on the other 3. So community shares as a type of crowdfunding is where a group of people rally together to purchase an asset that has some value to the community. That could be, for instance, the local pub. It could be a football club. It could be a green space, or it could be a pier, for instance. When pledging, the backer receives a share of whatever that asset is. So they become shareholders of the community asset. Although when purchasing a community share, it's important to note that when you buy it, you never really imagine that you'll receive any sort of financial return. It's much more about purchasing something that can be owned and run and utilized by the community, and being part of the community that's making that happen, rather than creating any sort of financial return on investment. So that's community shares. Lending is another type of crowdfunding, also known as debt crowdfunding, also known as peer-to-peer crowdfunding. And that is where, in return for a pledge of money, you give your backer an interest payment. So it's very similar to going to the bank for a loan, except for rather than one financial institution giving you the money that you need, that money is made up from a number of backers all across the country or the world. The third one is equity. So Jess touched on the fact that this week we crossed over the £1 million mark raised for Crowdfunder. One of our sister companies is called Crowdcube. They are industry leading equity crowdfunding platform. And what they do is help businesses raise cash, usually for growth. And in return for a backer giving that business some money, the business returns a part of the business, a chunk of equity, to the backer. So as a prime example, Crowdfunder have just released now over £1 million worth of equity. We've had over 600 people purchase that £1 million. If you are interested in learning more about that, head over to crowdcube.com/crowdfunder. The funding is open until the 5th of December, and I believe that there's still equity there, although we have hit our £1 million target, which leaves us with rewards. We'll go into rewards in a lot more detail, but in a nutshell, rewards crowdfunding is where, in return for a pledge of money, you give your backer or supporter a non-financial reward. The reward could be a product, it could be a service, it could be an acknowledgement of thanks, it could be an experience. It can be anything that's really tangible. It just can't be anything that is based on monetary value, for instance, equity or an interest repayment. We should probably look at an example of what a rewards-based crowdfunding project is. So, Jess, I think you've got a good one.
Okay, so we do love this project. So this chap called Phil from Leeds decided he wanted to set up his own bakery. He needed some money to buy some bread ovens, you know, the real core of his business, baking that bread. And he went to the bank and he said, can you guys give me some money, give me a loan and help me out because I want to set up this business? And the bank said no, and the computer said no. So he ended up having no money, but a brilliant idea. So Phil from Leeds decided to set up a crowdfunding campaign with us. He needed about £8,000. He created his project, he reached out to his community, he did loads of marketing, he really got his crowdfunding page out to the market, and Phil raised over £8,000 from 114 people to make his great idea a reality. Crowdfunding works for him. So in terms of why people pledged on Phil's project, he offered up bread making courses in return for pledges of cash. So Phil's community pledged on his campaign in return for great products, bread, you know, and courses and bread delivered to people's doors. And that's how he raised the money to make his idea happen. And to this day, he's still running an absolutely brilliant project, business in Leeds. So that's how it works. And that's a great example. Moving on to why people would crowdfund. Well, it's not just about the money. And this is one of my favorite bits about crowdfunding. It's actually about so much more for you and your idea and how to make that idea happen. Because what it gives you, crowdfunding as a whole, gives you the opportunity to market your idea. And crowdfunding really does get into the juice of it. And it really teaches you how to get that marketing pizzazz going on when you're out there talking about your project. When you've got lots of people pledging on your project, what you're also doing is you're generating this validation for your idea. If 200 people pledge on your idea and say, yeah, I really want this to happen, you've then got crowd validation. So whatever you want to do next with your idea, you've already got a bunch of people that also think it's a good idea. You obviously do get your funds, and that is important because crowdfunding, the clue's in the name. But also those people that have validated your idea, they become your advocates. So when you've crowdfunded and your project is happening and you've started using the money, you've always got those advocates, those people who supported your project behind you, and they're going to be behind you every single step of the way as you grow your idea and as you go forward. So you get marketing validation, you get your funds, and you get a serious case of amazing advocates, serious group of amazing advocates for your idea. So how does crowdfunding actually work? Well, the first thing you need to do is create your project on Crowdfunder. And in a minute, Si's going to go through all of that, and he'll tell you all the different aspects of how you create a project. Once you've got that project page created, you share that idea with your crowd, with your network, with people you know in business, with your community locally. You get local press, all sorts. So you share that page as far and wide as possible. People pledge on your page, they pledge for the rewards you're offering, and your idea gets funded. So that's how crowdfunding works. I just want to show you very quickly, this is an example of a project page. So over on the right, you can see that shows you the amount that this project has raised. It tells you how many backers, how many days left you've got in your campaign. Si will talk about that again briefly. The big black thing there with a picture of a net in it is actually a video. So that's where you showcase what your idea is, who you are, why you need money, and that's a really good example of a project page. So, Si, can you tell us a little bit about what the steps of crowdfunding actually are?
Sure. So that's a really good overview, Jess. Now we're going to get into a bit more granular detail about what to do if you are planning to run a crowdfunding project and the best ways to go about doing it. We want to try and increase your chances of success as much as possible, and hopefully some of the tips in this next segment will do that. I'm going to be talking for about 10 minutes or so. So if you have any questions at any point during the next 10 minutes, fire them over and we'll have a quick Q&A session afterwards. So the first step of the 6 we're going to talk about is building a team. For obvious reasons, having more people than just yourself can be a good thing and can be advantageous when you're crowdfunding, mostly because you build up the skill sets within the group that are attempting to crowdfund. So if you are not particularly digitally savvy, then it's worth finding someone who can join part of your crowdfunding team and support you on the more digital elements. Similarly, if you are not very clued up on social media, perhaps you can bring someone in who knows social media. Someone to make a video is another good skill set to have in a team. Above and beyond the obvious, it's better to have more people because you bring in more skills. It's actually a really good way of helping you get off to a good start when you launch a crowdfunding project. For instance, if I'm running a project on my own, I know for sure that I can find 10 of my best friends and family that will pledge on my project no matter what, and I can get them to pledge mostly just because they like me. So that's 10 people who I can guarantee will pledge at minute 0 of the project launching. If you have 5 people in your team and each of those 5 people all have 10 friends and family that they know will pledge sort of as soon as you tell them to, then that is potentially 50 people that you have backing your project from sort of the very start, from launching. And that can be really, really powerful in terms of helping build momentum and getting your project up and off of 0. So the more people in the team, the better. Bring in all the skills and help yourself get off to a good start. Number 2 in the 6 steps to crowdfunding success is your story. So once you know who's going to be working on the crowdfunding project with you, you need to figure out a good way to tell people what it is that you are actually trying to do in this crowdfunding project. There's 2 ways that you can do that. One is via a written project description, which sits on your page, and the second, which Jess briefly showed you on the project page, is a video. I'll go through both of them very quickly, but really the core messaging on both the written description and the video are the same. So the 3 key things that you need to make sure you're telling all people who look at your project are who you are and what you do, what it is that you are trying to achieve, and how the funds that you are raising are going to be used. If you think about it as a sort of funnel, you want to start really wide and broad at the top, which is just lots of information about who you are and what you do, and building credibility in you and the team. Next, you want to draw that down the funnel into more specifically, what's this project all about? Why, as a potential backer, am I looking at this project page? What is it that you're trying to do? What are you going to achieve? And how are you planning on, or how are you intending to do it? And then as you get narrower and narrower down to the bottom of the funnel, you want to tell people how you're going to use the money that you raise. Give them confidence that if they give you cash, you're going to spend that cash wisely and you're going to make really good things happen. They're the 3 key things. When you're writing your written description, don't forget to spread the text out, make it very manageable, use paragraphs, use subtitles, use headings, use images. Don't just give someone a huge block of text to read, because that's quite scary. Most people won't read it. And if they don't read it, they're not going to find out more information about your project. And if they don't have the information that they're looking for, there's a good chance that they won't pledge. The second way that you can tell your story on your crowdfunding page is with a video. We unfortunately don't have a video that we can show you during the webinar, but there are a couple of really good examples. If you head to Crowdfunder and search for the 3 wise monkeys, that's an excellent video about a group who are turning an old abandoned church into a climbing facility. Really cool video. Another one that I'd highly recommend watching is the Nuki Orchard project. So if you head to Crowdfunder and search Nuki Orchard, you will find it quite quickly. And that is a bunch of chaps who are down in Nuki and they're creating a community orchard. But that video is very well shot and it contains everything that I'm just about to talk to you about, what makes a good video. So there's 3, we like threes, three key things to do and to consider on your video. One is keep it short and sweet. Try not to go over 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. Really, you're looking for 90 seconds to 2 minutes. That's sort of the sweet spot. We want to make sure that we're getting all of the key messages across, who you are, what you're trying to do, and how you're going to spend the money in those 90 seconds, as well as showing people some more sort of context around what it is that you're trying to do. So for instance, if you are trying to raise $5,000 to fix up the roof at your local youth centre, then make sure you show the damaged roof. And so everybody can, they don't have to visualize or imagine, they can see what's actually going on currently. Next point that's really important with the video, make sure you get somebody in front of it. Show that there's real people and get their faces on camera. That's really good way. That's a really good way of building up an emotional connection with the project, between the project and the potential backer. And it's a really good way of building up trust. So don't shy away behind the camera. If you're particularly camera shy, then maybe you can find someone to do it for you, an ambassador for the project maybe. But get someone in front of the camera and get them explaining who you are and what you do. What it is that you're trying to achieve in the crowdfunding project and how you're going to spend the money. The third point is be as prepared as possible. Don't try and wing it. If the video comes across as amateur, then there's a good chance that a potential backer will think that the way that you're actually going to spend the money and realize the project once it's funded may also be amateur. And if that's the case, there's a good chance that they won't pledge. I certainly wouldn't pledge on something that I think is going to be a waste of money because it's not going to get done, or it's not going to get done particularly well. So be prepared, write a script, do a storyboard. There's a few good exercises that you can do in the Crowdfunder help section, if you head over there, which will show you sort of a few good examples of what crowdfunding videos look like and a couple of good things to focus on when you're doing it. So that's the video. Next, so just to recap, we now have a team and we have figured out what the story is. We now need to try and figure out who it is who's actually pledging on our project. And the best way to do that is with what we call a network map. So in the network map, we are trying to identify the different groups of people who we think would be interested in pledging. And most likely that will be people that you know already. So that's friends and family, maybe work colleagues, people in an association that you're part of, and people that you don't know but you think would be interested. So perhaps that's other associations that you could tap into. Maybe it's a few local businesses who you think would be interested in supporting your project. And you want to map all those people out. You can do a tree diagram, you can do a Venn diagram, like on the slides that you're looking at the moment. What's important is identifying the different segments. So that could be existing customers, corporate and local, that you see on the slides, and it will probably include a number of other different audience segments that you identify. If there's one thing that you do before going live, I'd recommend doing this, because it sort of forms the basis of a lot of decision making during the crowdfunding project, and it's knowing who it is who you're reaching out to. Once you've identified your crowd, we need to figure out what's going to incentivize them to pledge. So now we know that we've got a number of local businesses who we think might be interested, and a group of people in the local area, and an association who's interested in supporting our project at a national level. We know that we need lots of different things to incentivize each person. So there's a few examples of rewards on the slide. There's literally 1,000 different rewards that you could possibly offer, so I won't go into those types of rewards in too much detail. What I will say is make sure you match up the rewards to the audience that you have to reach out to. For instance, if you don't know any local businesses that might be interested in being a part of the project, then don't have all your rewards as sponsorships, because it's not relevant to the individuals who will be pledging. Similarly, if you get in touch with loads of local businesses and there's lots of interest, make sure you have a reward that local business can pledge on and would be interested in pledging on. In the lower end of rewards, make sure that they're really good value. So don't price a t-shirt at £50, because there's something in the human mind which goes, actually, that seems really expensive. And although this project's really good and I'd love to support it, I feel like I'm getting a little bit ripped off. In the high end, try and build exclusivity into whatever it is that you're doing. Try and find ways of offering something that you can't just normally buy off the shelf, and is tailored or personalized perhaps to the project itself. So we know who's pledging. We've got something that they want to pledge on. We've got a team and we've got a story. Now we need to figure out what our target figure is, and what sort of funding model we're going to use on Crowdfunder. So there's two ways that you can, two funding models that you can use on Crowdfunder. One is all or nothing, where you set a financial target and you have to hit that target or all of the money stays with the backers and you don't get any of it. The second is keep what you raise, which is fairly self-explanatory. All money pledged towards your project you will receive at the end of it. Lots of people will lean towards the keep what you raise funding model, because it's very low risk. Whatever's pledged is yours and you can probably do something great with that money. However, I strongly advise that if you're going to run a crowdfunding project, to do it as an all or nothing one. On average, projects that go under the all or nothing fundraising model will raise 5 times more than the equivalent keep what you raise crowdfunding model. So if we're dismissing the keep what you raise and we're going for all or nothing, that means setting our targets really important. Obviously, you know, if you've costed out your project, an amount that you need to achieve whatever it is that you're trying to do. However, when you set your target, there's a fine line between setting a target which is achievable and realistic, and also covering everything that you need to do whatever it is that you want to do. So if we've identified our crowd earlier on, and we know that we have 100 people in the local area we think would be interested in pledging, 10 friends and family, and the association we've got on board is about 1,000 people strong, and we try and set a target at £500,000, we know with that audience it's probably a little bit unrealistic. And what we don't want to do is spend a lot of time and effort trying to raise £500,000 if the audience that we have to reach out to is only good for sort of £5,000 or £10,000. There's a good trick to figuring out what number is achievable. On Crowdfunder, we know that the average pledge is about 50 quid. So if you take a hypothetical target figure and divide it by 50 quid. That gives you the average number of backers that you need to achieve that target. If you then go back to your identifying the crowd exercise, the network map that you've done, and those numbers are very misaligned, then you know that perhaps you either need to focus on building your network before running your project, or taking a smaller element of the project itself and just raising money for that rather than for the full thing. Next up, very important decision: how long should my project run for? This is the U-shaped curve in terms of number of pledges over duration of project. What we've come to learn is that at the start of a project, there'll be loads of pledging, a flurry of activity as you tell your 10 friends and family to pledge. And it's all very exciting, and it's fresh, and it's new, and it's innovative. People getting bored, and they'll jump in and they'll pledge. So you'll get lots of pledges at the start of the project. Similarly, at the end, there's a real sense of urgency. Everyone that you've reached out to over the duration of your project will realize that they've said they pledged, and now they only have 48 hours to do it, so they'll actually commit to pledging, and there'll be lots of pledging happening at the end. In the middle, and this happens to every project, you will plateau slightly, and the pledges will stop coming in when your project is neither really new and exciting, or there's not enough time sensitivity around it to get people to commit to pledging straight away. What you don't want to happen is that plateau to be lasting for a long time. So we've realized the optimum amount of time to run a project for is about 28 days, which gives you just enough time to capture as many pledges as possible, but also minimizes the amount of plateau time that you have in the middle of the project. So now we know how long it's going to be live for. We know who's going to pledge on it, what the rewards we're going to offer those people are. We know the team, and we've got a good story. The video is looking really good. We know how we know what fundraising model we're going for and the target. We're pretty much there. Now we just need to figure out how it's actually going to get funded, and we do this through a marketing plan. So the general strategy for marketing a crowdfunding project is built around momentum, and it's all built around the fact that you tell the people who you're closest to, the people in your network map, and the people who you know are going to be interested to pledge, and you capture as many pledges as possible. What you then do is ask those guys to share your project with their own individual networks, and that boosts and amplifies the number of people that you can reach out to massively. What will then happen is those groups of people, if they're interested and wouldn't have normally seen your project, will pledge, and you ask them to share with their networks, and you're amplifying people you know with the people they know with the people that they know, and all of a sudden you can quite quickly reach and get your project in front of lots of people. So there's a few ways that you do that. I can't go through all of them because we don't have enough time, but that should give you some inspiration. On the left-hand side of the screen you're looking at, they're all ideas for what to do before you go live. So that's a bit what we call pre-marketing, and it's lining up. It's all about lining up pledges for when you go live. In the middle, you've got your launch event. So that is all about when you set your project off, you press go and you're officially live and you can start funding. And then on the right-hand side is when you are live. There's some ideas of what you can do to get your project out in front of people. When you do go live, you will have access to a project dashboard. That's a place that pulls in all the stats which you need to make decisions as you go through the crowdfunding journey. It's a pretty unique dashboard. It gives you lots and lots of information. You can see things like where pledges are coming from, people that are referring them, what your conversion rate between page views and pledges are. You can figure out things like what rewards are working better than others. It's a really interesting place to be, and you can afford to be quite reactive when you're crowdfunding and follow the things that are working. And that dashboard is something that you have access to and will help you do so. So to recap the 6 steps: find a team in order to build the skills within the crowdfunding project and get yourself off to a good start by 10 friends and family all pledging. You need to tell a story via written description and video. The 3 things that you need to do in a story is tell people who you are, what it is that you're trying to achieve, and how you're going to spend the money. Number 3, identify your crowd. Figure out who it is who's going to pledge, and both sides of who you know, who you think will pledge, and who you don't know but you think would be interested in pledging. So what what that person looks like and identify how you reach out to those guys. Once you've done that, you can figure out what rewards are going to incentivize each group and start to build a rewards package, making sure to keep the low value rewards good value, the high value rewards exclusive and not off the shelf and slightly unique, and to have a good range. Then you need to figure out what funding model you're going to use. We don't really need to figure that out because you should definitely be doing all or nothing crowdfunding, and setting a target that's realistic and achievable, but will also allow you to do whatever it is that you say you're going to do. And then you need to develop a marketing plan and actually shout about it, which is the last step, and build momentum into your marketing by using the people who have backed your project already to share with their own networks. So, whistle stop tour on the 6 steps to crowdfunding success. Jess, what would you do now if you wanted to run a project?
I think your whistle stop tour was brilliant, Si. So what I would do next is I'd get my team together. I'd think about who's in my team, who's going to help me make my idea a reality. And I would make sure that they've each got certain and different things to do so that I know my project's going to hit loads of people and it's going to get funded. I'd also make sure that with that team, I'd make a plan so I'd know exactly what I'm going to do at every stage of my crowdfunding campaign. So I'd start with having that team, knowing what my marketing is, knowing what my video is, when we're going to launch, how long we're going to run our campaign for. All that stuff's really important. And actually, we have got these really cool things called funding packs, which helps you through all of these sessions. So I'll add that into the webinar roundup when I send you an email afterwards. And then obviously, you're going to want to create your project on Crowdfunder. That is key. You need to get it in there. You can actually log on and start building your project in advance. It doesn't go live straight away, so you can go back and edit it afterwards. You can add your video in, you can tweak your words, your different rewards. That's no problem at all. So get that project added. And then, of course, I'm going to get my idea funded, Si. That's my plan. So that's it for this week. We are going to go through some questions in a minute, actually. Some of you have sent in some questions particularly about the types of rewards you can offer on your campaign. So if you do want to get in touch with us, though, it's support@crowdfunder.co.uk. You can search for Crowdfunder on Facebook and find us there, and also on Twitter, which is @CrowdfunderUK. So I'm just going to stop sharing the screen with you and put me and Si back in the room. Hello. Okay, now forgive me for looking down, but that's because I'm just checking out the questions. And Si, we've got a really good one from Murray, who's asking, are digital rewards a really great way of producing low entry pledges? So he's seen some really great ones out there.
Hello, Murray. Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic way of creating low value entry point crowdfunding rewards, as long as you have the technical skills to create it. So some good ones that I've seen are things like downloadable images, especially good if you can get people sharing them. Also, there's been videos where you can upload a picture of yourself, and it comes in the, what was it? It was an elf. It was an elf. So you upload a picture of yourself onto an elf. Yeah, so people use that as a reward. They're a really good way of not costing you very much money, but delivering something of value at the lower end. What I wouldn't do is offer a downloadable photo at sort of 20 quid, because it's very unlikely that people are going to pledge on that.
People really like social media shout outs as well. You know, they might pledge you £5. You might do this big shout out for their business or for them on Twitter. You know, those are the ones for the people that really want to support you, but don't actually want to pledge 20 or 30 quid. Maybe they haven't got the money at the time. So thanks, Si, for that one. Okay, another question we've got. I've got a charity project and we don't have any merchandise. So what kind of rewards should they use?
That's a good question. So rewards tend to come in one of 4 forms: product, service, experience, or acknowledgement. If you're a charity, it's very unlikely that you're going to have access to products or services. So if we focus on experience and acknowledgement, something as simple as a thank you is usually enough for a low-end reward. If you have any sort of assets in the form of a building, for instance, maybe you could create a supporters wall. You could also do a similar acknowledgement on your website, where you have a page dedicated to the people who've supported you. Perhaps you could name a room after someone who gives you a certain amount of money, pledges, say £1,000. So that's the acknowledgement side. Experience, what you could also do is have some sort of launch event for whatever it is that you're raising money for, where you sell tickets at £25 to come along to an event, and maybe you could do an open air cinema screening or a I don't know, a barbecue in the summertime or something along those lines. It's not impossible to do the products and services, and what lots of charities do for those two reward form factors are to reach out to local businesses and see if they will donate some of their products or some of their services as rewards. For instance, you could reach out to a local business and they might give you 5 food hampers, and you could sell those food hampers for £50 a piece as rewards, and that's allowing you to raise potentially £250 using that as a reward. So I hope that helps.
I particularly like the charity campaigns where they might have spoken to the guy that owns the pub down the road, and then you can put up a dinner for 2, because that's the sort of reward I love pledging on. It's a treat, right? I'm going to pay for it. So another great question is, oh, this is a really good one. So I'm planning a community share offer. Should I add rewards as well?
Yes, you should. And Crowdfunder is actually the only platform, I believe, in the UK that you can do that with, combining both rewards and community shares. So generally speaking, community shares will launch or will start at sort of £150, £250, which unfortunately for that amount of money does price some people out of being part of a project. What you can do is supplement below the, say, £250 mark, where the share offer or the share option comes into play, with rewards. For instance, you could have a reward at £10, which is just a simple thank you. At £50, you could have a reward that invites everyone to come and be part of the launch of the pub that you've just purchased, for instance. And what you're doing there is making sure that everybody, no matter what their disposable income is, can be involved with your projects, with your project, and being part of the community that's making that happen, without having to actually take on ownership. So yes, you definitely should. And if you're planning on doing that, then you should be running it on Crowdfunder so that you can offer those, both rewards and community shares.
And if you do want to talk about community shares, make sure to join us on Twitter with @CrowdfunderUK, and we can put you in touch with a brilliant guy called Dave Boyle, who's he's our consultant, isn't he, on community shares? He's our expert, so he's really good. He'll be really helpful. So another good question is, what is the average pledge and what is the most popular level of reward?
Okay, another good question. So we run data pools all the time on everything that's happening on the website. We're driven by numbers, and the average amount that's pledged changes month on month. It's not always the same, and it changes on the type of project that you are running. However, on average, it's about 50 quid, which is considerably higher than a lot of donation-based sites, and that number does tend to surprise some people, but the average amount is £50. For a charity-based project, you might find that dips down slightly, as the rewards that you offer are usually not as tangible as, for instance, a business which has a physical product which they're essentially pre-selling through a crowdfunding project. But if you bank on £50, then that is the average. Bearing in mind, we do have well over 1,000 projects that are live at any given time. Lots of them are funding. We're raising millions, so that is quite a broad range that we're looking at.
Well, that's it for today, Si. That's all of our questions answered, and hopefully everybody's learned quite a lot about how to run a crowdfunding project, and we'll be back this time next week. Thanks very much. Thanks, Si. Cheers.